Okay, so um, so I don't even know where to start with this recording because I have no idea really. I have no idea in my mind, but I have this. I felt this surge of inspiration to talk about who knows what, but I felt the surge. Um, but the main idea behind the surge feels to be something about the insanity, the apparent insanity, or the real insanity, who really knows, of this entire experience called whatever this is. It seems insane because actually it's not insane. And that makes it even more insane, in my opinion. It's like nothing even happens. It's like all this, like, I don't know, for some reason today, it appears like all these most profound mystical truths and even my own most profound mystical experiences, the ones that I had when I was a child and I really understood, like, I looked at, I remember I was a child, I think I was 5 or 6, or maybe even 4. But I remember I was trying to understand what is this, like, what is this experience? And I was looking at objects and I was trying to understand what does it mean to look at something? What does it mean? I was moving my hand and I was trying to understand what does it mean to move my hand. And I remember there was a moment when I was looking at a door. The door. It was right in this room, actually. And I was looking at the door. And I was little because I remember I was seeing the doorknob like something higher than me. So I was little. And I was looking at the doorknob, and while looking at it, I remember I clearly had the knowing. It was more than a feeling or a sensation. I just saw it. I just saw the truth directly, like in front of my eyes. I really saw the truth. It's like I knew that when and if I would stretch my hand out to try to touch the doorknob and open the door, in that moment I just knew that everything, my entire movement of stretching my hand, touching the doorknob, touching it, moving it, opening the door, all of these apparent happenings, all of these apparent experiences would just be things created in my brain. So I had this, I don't even know how to explain how it was just knowing. I just knew this is a fact. So all these experiences were created in my brain, and I had the impression further that something, something was, if I wanted to move my hand, something was creating an impression that I have a hand. So that was an added knowing to the first knowing. So something was creating the impression that I have a hand, that I'm moving a hand, that I'm touching a doorknob, and that I'm opening a door. And all of these things were created, something was creating those sensations in my mind. I really knew this is a fact. But I didn't know what was that something, or if it was a something, or I was just imagining it or personifying it as a something. That I just knew that these sensations, the sensations of having a hand, the sensations of moving, of touching objects, were created in my own mind, and my own mind never actually moves, never actually does anything. It's like I felt like this thing that never moves, never does anything, and all these things just happen to me. All these sensations they just are ignited, and they are just impregnated in me, but I never actually do anything. So then later on, now I've uh, came across like Aristotle's unmoved mover, which says pretty much exactly this, that this uncaused cause of the universe that never moves but is moving everything and moves itself with everything, and that it never actually does anything at all, in fact. So it never actually moves, although it appears to constantly move. So the unmoved mover. So all these mystical, like profound truths, the deepest, most truths about the nature of existence and even others like this, but it just feels like it just they have this morning and now they just I need to really wonder how profound, like they are profound because our minds seems right now to be unaware of them, but how profound and true are they really? Because this just feels like an insanity in a way, for some reason. Like all this thing with the spirit world and the the spirit world being this pure pristine world of unchanged phenomena where everything is just in its perfect form, and then you have the decadent world where everything changes and it's transient and temporary, and who is keeping these freaking two things together? Like, who is keeping spirit and matter linked together like this? And who is keeping like the unmoved mover moving all the time? And who is who is having, like, who is doing this, the movement and the stillness, the space and the matter, the time and eternity? Who is freaking keeping all of these paradoxical, apparently paradoxical experiences together? And why? Why have a mind, and why have a mind that feels divided from the heart, and why have a left hemisphere that feels divided from the right, and why have a body that does not apparently recognize spirit? And why all of this unknowingness, perpetual unknowingness throughout all of these separate, apparently separate experiences? Why so much disconnection between all of these experiences? Why keeping all these parts of the psyche, of the self, apart from one another? And all of the reasons that I could came to me, like I would see how the self itself divides itself, splits apart in order to grow, because each split would create a space. So you have first a molecule, and then it divides in two molecules. But see, everyone focuses on the two molecules now existing, but no one sees that now there is a third entity created as well. It's the space between the molecules. Because with each division, basically the space increases. Because you have one and then you have two, but the two are linked together by this invisible space, because you see one here and one there, but there has to be a space between them in order for them to appear different. So basically, by dividing, by separating, by splitting, what happens is that the space is increased. Nothingness increases with each separation. And I was seeing all these things, but even so, like, I was seeing how nothing itself grows in itself without moving, but it grows by splitting and separating and creating all these separate consciousnesses that keep a distance from one another just to have this space created. Inside this space it dreams, it uses this space as a space of dreaming and playing. And but even so, like, why the heck to dream? Why would you need to dream? Why would you need to increase space? Why would you need to grow? Like, why? I know that for the most minds, these questions are might even sound the most from redundant to insane, because how would could one mind question why the cosmic mind wants to grow? But really, like, all these mechanics that need to be put in place to grow this space, to grow this nothingness, this cosmic whatever mind, it seems like, why? It just feels like it has no sense in a way. It just feels like insanity, like perpetual insanity, the unmoved mover for a reason. Right now, it feels like insanity, man. Just staying there, not moving, still being still all the time and creating all this perpetual movement, nothing and everything, all the time, nothing becoming everything, and just sustaining this all the time. Like, maybe you want a break. I don't know. I'm just saying, just maybe you want a break. Sometimes, from all these paradoxes and all these, I don't know. And while I was sitting in bed this morning, I was seeing how nothing actually exists. All this world is non-existent. And even if it is existent, actually, I personally see it as existent. But I'm seeing that the world that really is here is not the one that we see with our eyes. What we see with our eyes, what we perceive with our touch, sight, smell, taste, and hearing, it seems like a false perception of what is here. This thing here appears in reality to be completely different. Matter is completely different than what we perceive matter to be. These senses here, these senses don't perceive reality the way it is. These eyes don't perceive colors, they don't perceive sight, they don't even seem to perceive not even 1 bit% of what is really here. These ears don't perceive the sound, this body doesn't touch the right textures, and because it's all interpreted to this brain, and this brain is freaking split. This brain is freaking split. The two major splits is between the right and left hemisphere. So it's, how could you want could you how could one think that it sees reality the way it is when every information goes through the brain, but the brain is split? So the brain is doing, like, half of the brain is doing its own thing and the other half of the brain is doing another thing. So how could anyone think that it views reality in its natural way, the way it really is? So nothing is actually happening. Everything that happens is filtered through the brain, so we only interact with our own meanings, with the meanings that our brain is has stored inside about the things around. So for example, if I have a bottle of water, my brain, when I look at this, my brain tells me this is a bottle of water, but who knows what this is in reality? Like, I don't know what this is, I don't know what my body is, I don't know anything, but my brain settles. By looking at this, it settles, oh, this is a bottle of water. And it doesn't question further, it doesn't look further into this thing, with whatever this is. Doesn't question it and doesn't look forward into it. It stops there, it stops at its own meanings. The brain has pre-existing meanings inbuilt into it, and it looks at the things around and it projects the meanings it has on the things. And then when it sees a thing, it doesn't interact with the thing, it interacts with its own meanings. So it says, oh, this is a bottle, it's transparent, it's hard to touch, I could lick it like a child, and it tastes like this. It stops there, the brain stops there. The brain cannot interact with reality in the natural way the reality might actually be, because the brain only interacts with its own meaning. So now after this you have the soul. And the soul, oh god, how can we start talking about the soul? Because then you have the soul, which is the energy source of the mind, feeds the brain with power for the brain to be able to construct and hold all these meanings. The brain being like a sort of computer, and the soul being like an energy source, like the electric energy. One of its roles, I mean, that seem to be its roles to me. So then you have the soul, which has this basically source of pure consciousness, pure the blueprint of creation, basically, but not in mental form, in energetic form. So you have the blueprint of creation right there, the energy for everything to be created and manifested by the brain in the way the brain is experiencing. So then you have the world of potentials, of moving energies, of vibrations, of frequencies, of the ocean of life. Everything here in the soul is programmed exactly like the brain to manifest. The soul is freaking programmed to be a creator, to freaking spur out all the time creations and manifestations, which the brain then goes on to interpret, add meaning, think it experiences it. So the soul just pumps freaking creative energy all the time into the brain, into the mind. And the mind takes that energy, transforms it into patterns, calls those patterns ideas, and from those ideas projects those ideas onto the natural reality around. And then it thinks, it interacts with those ideas. It's simple. Basically, what the soul wishes, the brain manifests. So you have this duo. the soul and the mind. The soul wishes and emits a will, and the mind fabricates the experience of that. Even though in reality nothing happens. The natural reality around never changes. The soul cannot alter, or it doesn't seem to me to be able to alter the natural reality around. The soul is like a child. This is how I perceive the soul. It's like you have a child, or more, 2, 3 children sitting in a room and playing pirates. The childs are freaking sitting in a room with walls, with chairs, with a table there, with whatever natural objects that exist in the room. But the child, if the child and when the child decides to play pretend as playing the pirates, let's say, making pretend they are pirates, they can take the freaking table existing in the room and they can transform the table, they can imagine the table to be a ship. They can flip it upside down and they can hop into the table thinking they have hopped into the freaking pirate ship and they are on the sea and sailing, right? So what happens with the child is that the table never changes, it's still a table. But for the duration of the play, in the child's mind, the child looks at the table and views a ship. It doesn't matter that the table is still a table because the child has decided the table is a ship. And now the child looks at the table and sees its own decided meaning, sees a ship. So for the duration of the play, for the duration of the children playing, they will look at the table and they will see a ship. It doesn't matter if in reality the table is still a table. This is the soul. This is exactly how I see the soul functioning. The soul is here to imagine the natural reality around is different than what the natural reality around is. And the soul projects this wish, this will, this powerful creative force onto the things around. It's like taking the table and looking at it and considering it to be a ship. This is how the soul does it. And then the mind comes in and says, oh yeah, for sure, the soul is right. This is not a table anymore, this is a ship. And now the mind just creates that vision. It obstructs the senses, it not obstructs, it distorts its own perceptions. I mean, it distorts the perceptual sensations in order for it to convince itself it is looking at a ship and not at a table. This is the power of imagination. This is the soul. So, what can you say? You find yourself on Earth, you see yourself having a mind that constantly distorts reality and a soul that constantly fuels the mind to do that. And then there's more. Behind the soul, there is a heart. And behind the brain, there is a, let's say, behind this mind of the body, there is a higher mind. The pure mind, the pristine mind, the actual, let's say, real mind. And the real, let's say, creator or whatever, which is the heart. And you have those. And those are the organs, let's say, that actually interact with the natural reality. So through the heart, basically the natural reality is actually created and sustained in existence through the heart. But the heart is a different creator than the soul. The heart does not create by those imaginary impulses and creativity, and it has completely other ways of functioning, which is in accordance with even something higher than itself. It's in accordance with everything in a way. Because the soul is individual, but the heart is collective. This heart is everything. So then you have the higher mind, which is also in touch with everything. You have the consciousness, that awareness, or whatever you want to call it, that pure awareness, that pure sense of. Then you have the pure heart, which is also the. So you have the first layer. You have the mind of the body, this brain, the mind that operates this brain, with the soul. And then if you move a level backwards, you have the higher mind, the real, the pure mind, and then you have the pure heart. But they are, in front of them, they are this soul and this mind of the body, or whatever, secondary mind, lower mind, as it is called in some systems, has been interposed. So now one doesn't see itself functioning from its real mind, from its pure mind, pristine mind, and from its pure heart, pristine heart, because now in front of them, this layer of soul and the lower mind, or the mind of the body, has been juxtaposed. But even if you go to the pure mind and the pure heart, where you're like, what is that? Like, I mean, I haven't got there, but I'm just continuing to wonder. Like, what the freaking hell is this? This constant need to create, then experience creations, like this constant dance between stillness and movement, this constant paradoxical unknown, this constant mind fog. At least for me, it's like this lower mind and this soul is like freaking feeling completely exhausting. This constant mind fog, this constant detachment from my real thinking, my pure mind, and my true heart. At least with the heart, I can feel, in my case, I mean, there is a more true, deeper connection, I think. At least I have the pure heart. I am in touch. I feel in touch with the pure heart, but not so much with the pure mind. So I don't feel my pure sense of perception active. So now everything is an illusion created by this secondary mind and this soul. Everything is like being inside the imagination of that child that looks at the table and sees a sheep and plays pirates. So everything here is like a play pretend of something the soul imagines playing. So, and I find myself in this play pretend, which I have no recollection of its origins. I have no idea why my soul is projecting this, why my soul is imagining this reality, why the brain is listens to the soul. That's already discussed and laid out, but the brain just fabricates the reality and maintains the perception that whatever the soul dictates, it's actually happening. So I see the brain and the mind of the brain, the mind of the body, like a subordinate anyway. So it's like I'm looking at the soul, because the soul is the main freaking creator in this equation. So I'm looking at the soul. I have no idea why my soul is projecting this, pouring out this freaking energy for this reality to exist in this way. Who knows? If you enter into the soul realm, goes mad. There are so many factors. Then you have collective souls, then you have collective influences and co-creations and whatever. Go there is like freaking war zone with who creates what, and my creation is better and I'll destroy yours, but I'll create mine, and no, let me do it like this, or maybe let's co-create, or whatever. It's insanity from my perspective to start to try to figure out how the soul freaking got to this freaking projection. It's a freaking tree of life. Like you can go there for eternities into the genealogy and the story of it, and you will not end, because it's endless, it's eternal. So how could you end? Because the soul has no time. It has been doing this for eternity. You can stay on eternity to figure out the story of the soul, and you'll not be able to figure it out in details because it's ever going. So Yeah. Who knows why my soul is freaking projecting this? Like staying out and trying to figure out the traumas or perceptual filters or whatever that actually leads to freaking seeing reality the way it is. It just feels like never ending. There doesn't seem to be an end if you want to go into the soul and figure out and start messing with the projection and start altering the projection. It's like never ending. I don't feel that's the source of satisfaction there, to be able to alter the projections of the soul. It's like, in my case, at least there was this thing like, at least let it go on the way it does, and I'm just gonna mind my own business and trying to study or see if I can go backwards to the heart that exists behind the soul and to my pure mind that exists behind this mind, lower mind. And so today, for this brain, for this body, for this mind, everything kind of has a sort of touch of perhaps insanity, like having all this confusion, constant confusion, not knowing, not who I am anymore, but just I know I'm missing an intrinsic sense of pure knowing. Like I know there is a natural reality in which I am looking at a bottle, let's say, but it's not a bottle. And I know I'm looking in a natural reality at something. And when I'm looking at that something, I know I'm seeing it for 100% in 100% truth of its own existence. I know I can interact. There is an instance of myself in me in which I can look at an object, at a plant, at a tree, at my body, at my own thoughts, at my emotions, and I can freaking know them entirely. It's more than entirely, I mean. It's profoundly in it's so deep that you can't even have words to explain that type of knowing, because it's more than mental knowing. It's something else than intellectual knowing altogether. It's breathing with it, breathing with this other form, knowing it by breathing with it. It's like making love, orgasm, being completely one intimately with it. I know there is an instance of myself where things are known purely in this way, with zero effort. But currently, I'm not perceiving myself. I'm not perceiving myself nor the things around through this pure sense, which I remember. So, the last thing I think I'm feeling to add is that nothing is real, nothing ever happens. This is just a projection from the brain, and why actions are important. Actions in this projection, now I'm moving within the projection, I am accepting the projection. I am in a projection, the soul freaking spurs the energy for this, the mind takes the energy, projects what the soul has created, dictated, that should be the experience. Okay, inside the projection, now you have this projected layer, like a virtual reality 100D virtual reality, right? Now we are moving inside of it. Now I'm seeing myself moving my body, existing in this projection, right? And these projections are actions are the most vital ones. The way we act is the way we perceive. Each action that we create changes our brain. And the most important thing when we act, we can't take it back from the level of the projection. If we have created a certain action within the this virtual realm, this projected imaginary realm projected by the soul, in this game, how I called it many times, I called it a game, like a virtual play, pretend, like a game on a computer. the thing that I'm seeing with actions is like actions are one of the most sensible things, because once somebody acts in a certain way, what happens is that actions freeze this energy. The energy that comes from the soul comes in a vibratory, flowing state. The soul emits a certain pulse to experience some realities in some way, and the pulse comes as a wave. It's vibratory, it's flowing. The thing is that the mind takes that energy and transforms it into static meaning, takes that analog system and transforms it into digital um, signals. Once the mind transforms that into digital signals, it kind of locks those digital signals in place. Once those signals has been signaled, once those analog signals have been digitalized, they kind of are stored in the mind as patterns and meanings. And once a pattern has entered the mind, it's kind of tricky to make it go away. You need to destroy the pattern. You need to transform it back from a fixed particle into a wave. There are methods, of course. But for the usual human being that doesn't want to go into these methods of self-destroying its own meanings, the meanings of its own mind, just wants to freaking have an experience where you don't have to perpetually need to destroy the meanings of your own mind. It just wants to go about its own experience and enjoy life, maybe. You have to be very careful with actions, because the actions, once you create a certain action, is like an action is like a stamp of on reality. Once you create a certain action, the vibratory energy behind it that comes from the soul is fixed in place. If there was an action made with a certain vibration, with a certain energy assigned to it, that energy will be stamped onto this mental realm. So the mind now will see, oh, okay, so if you created this, it's like inserting, actions are inserting meanings into the mind. So actions convert energy to meaning, to mental patterns. If you have a certain energy inside and you create an action with that energy, for example, if now I'm angry and I take this bottle of water and I drink, it's not the same as if I would be, let's say, joyous and I would take this bottle of water and drink. It's not the same for my mind. Even if the action remains the same, right? It seems like the same. I just take the bottle of water and drink. If I do it while holding self-hate, for example, that tells something to my mind. That locks in my mind the energy or the meaning of self-hate, which comes with then cause and effect within the mind, self-destruction, diseases, whatever. There is a web of meaning in the mind. So actions are very important, because whatever action you create, that action will shape your mind. It's exactly the actions that you do is the reality you'll come to perceive. It's not because reality changes, reality never changes. But your mind will change. If you do an action, you will change your own mind. It's like having this Rubik cube, and you will shift your mind with each action that you do. Your mind shifts a bit, and then the state your mind is in is what you will perceive in the exterior reality, because this is just a projection of the mind. So this is why actions are important. I would recommend actions need to be done if you want, if dependent on the goal, somebody is connected with. So there can be two main types of goals somebody can have. Some can have the goal of playing the game, of being inside this game and playing it. So they want and they need their soul to be active, potent, and their mind, their secondary mind, the mind of the body that listens to the soul and manifests reality, they need that mind to be effective and trust in it, right? So that's one goal. There can be another goal. You can be interested in reaching your other, let's say, instance of yourself that has, behind the soul you have a heart, the pure heart, and behind this lower mind you have the pure mind, the higher mind, let's say. Some call it higher, but I don't see it as higher. I just see it as more primordial, more true, more real, pure mind. So a second goal for your existence here might be to actually step away from the game of the soul and lower mind and step again into the real, let's say, existence of the pure heart and the pure mind, which shows you how things naturally are, and you don't have to be in these projections, in these mental projections that are always fleeting, always changing, and you never know what will come next. You just go into that level where you have the pure heart open and the pure mind open, and you're just seeing things as they are. Everything is in order, nothing changes without you being the change in a way, and it's everything. It's for me that feels more natural. And so you can have these two goals. Some people can be interested. It's not up to them, by the way. The person cannot decide its own goal. You can stay for years and try to convince yourself that your goal is to go to the pure heart and the pure mind. But if your soul is something within you that decides this, it's not you who decides it. You can't choose this. You can only recognize the choice that is already made for you, within you. And you can ace your experience, whatever the experience and the goal is. You can ace that goal by actually aligning yourself with it. If you go within yourself and you figure out that, well, that's it. For this lifetime, the goal for me seems to be to actually act in this imaginary virtual realm. Then, from my experience, you need to take that seriously and you need to devote yourself to that goal. Because as much as you take it seriously and as much as you try to weed, like taking weeds off, like weed off all other opinions that you hear, all other people that you hear that they want to go to the pure heart and to pure mind, doesn't matter for you. If you know for sure and you have managed to identify within yourself that the goal of your soul, the goal of your being in this lifetime, in this appearance, is to perfect its soul play, whatever you can choose and do in this reality will not alter that. So it can only bring you more pain and suffering if you're not aligning yourself with that. So my recommendation would be to just try to calm down and align yourself with that goal. Try to pay attention to the game. Try to pay attention to your soul. Try to pay attention to what your soul wants to create. Try to pay attention to actually manifest and create the right experience that your soul wants to create, and stop fussing around, just going nonsense and nowhere within this simulation, within this virtual realm. Start aligning yourself with the energy of your soul and start becoming this channel that channels the energy of the soul and lets the mind create all these imaginations and just play in the imaginations, but play it right. Create the right actions. And you can create the right actions by calming your mind first. This is why some people are more invested in working with their minds when they want to wake up, let's say. You will see that some people want to wake up, but they are instinctually starting to work with their own mind, with their own meanings. Because these people have split from their soul and went it into their minds. So they have a tertiary level of split in a way. Not only that they are split from their pure heart, pure mind, and they are seeing themselves in the soul mind. Now they have split from the soul and went into the mind. So they have almost no recollection of what their soul wants to express and manifest. So this is why they need to get out of the mind, of their mental distorted perceptions of what they need to acquire and achieve, and I don't know, relationships, jobs, houses, cars, whatever meanings you have in your mind that tells you, distorts what your soul wants to engage and manifest. So clear your mind, listen to the soul, let the soul express, and then your mind will adjust itself through new actions and will perceive a new reality that will feel more in tune with you. And then from that step on, only after you have managed to become to have the creator, the soul, fully expressed, then you can move to the next step of reaching for. So you need to reaching for the pure heart and the pure mind, but first you need to unite your soul with your mind to get there. So, for other people, other beings who already have their soul mind united, the thing now is that they feel deeply compelled to get, in a way, to unite the soul mind with the pure heart and the pure mind. So, they are something in them, not them, they are not choosing this, they can't choose this, but something in them deeply, that kicks them in the butt or in the bowels, let's say, to freaking move and freaking go to the pure heart and the pure mind, to freaking sort out all of these things with the soul and the mind and the projections and the virtual realms, to sort it out and get out in a way of it, because they freaking know inside this is not a true reality. This is, I have, they know that I don't want anything with it. I'm done with it. It's like my entire cells, all of the cells in my body, of my mind, of my soul, of my being are freaking completed. There's like nothing, this imaginary realm, nothing that the soul could ever create, nothing that the soul could ever imagine, nothing new, nothing that the soul could ever create could enrich me, could satisfy me anymore, could, like, I'm done, I'm full. It's like eating something, eating a dish until you really feel this was it. My body is satisfied. I need to move on. So that's when the other thing is to quiet your soul now. Similar to how these beings that were split from their mind and their soul need to quiet their mind, these beings that are see themselves split from their soul and their pure heart need to quiet their soul. So now you need to stop freaking being a creator. You need to stop freaking manifesting things. You need to stop freaking desiring to manifest things in this reality, although you can see yourself having so much power over this reality. So it's tempting still, because you see yourself, you see how your energy impacts reality. You see how easy it is for reality to be morphed and moved and changed. But then you need to stop creating, you need to stop manifesting, you need to listen, you need to silence in a way, to get to that soul silence in order to hear the heart. Because you can't hear your heart, your pure heart, if the soul is constantly moving, creating, and it's like a thing that is put in front of your heart, and you can't hear the heart because the heart is incredibly, compared to the soul, it feels incredibly silent, incredibly subtle. So if the soul constantly moves and creates and wants that and does that and projects that and wishes for that and doesn't wish for that other, and it's constantly a movement here, you will not reach your heart. So the soul needs now to quiet down so you can go into the heart. And then from the heart, because that heart could be split from the pure mind, not that split as the mind is from the soul, they are entangled, but then you have to somehow click on that connection again. So there is this cross, there is this quarterly. The first level you have a split between the pure mind and the pure heart, and then the heart is split between the soul and the mind, the soul and the secondary mind, and then the soul can have even tertiary split between the soul and the secondary mind. Yeah, so the idea is that whatever goal you find yourself working at without you wanting or choosing, because this goal is not chosen by you, it can speed you up if you just try to align with that goal. If you just try to quiet down your mind or your soul in order to be able to align yourself, your actions, your emanations with that true goal that works through you, independent of your choice. So what I found is that quieting down, stimming down, listening, surrendering, abandoning, in whichever level you find yourself, these tools, surrender, abandoning, let go, accept, listen, surrender to this, let's say, higher will, all of these things, once you calm down, even if you calm down your mind or you calm down your soul, if you calm down, if you still yourself, if you listen, if you be open and willing and accepting, then these other realities come to you. If you're split, if you find yourself in a split between your secondary mind, your lower mind, and your soul, if you calm your mind down, your soul will come to you. It will show itself to you. It will start coming to your awareness. If you see yourself split from your soul and your heart, if you quiet down your heart will come to you. But you can't go to your heart. Mm-mm. It doesn't work that way. You can't do anything to reach the heart. Even if you try to do anything, it's like going into deeper sand fields. As much as this is the trick. When you try to go backwards into you, let's say, the true self, you can't do it by acting out. Any action that you create creates more illusion. Actions are only meant to create illusions, to expand forward into illusory realms. So if you want to go back to the true nature of existence, you need to take back actions. You need to stop acting. Stop acting out. It's like playing a pirate game. If you want the pirate game to freaking end, you don't go around playing as pirate anymore, because if you continue to act like a pirate, you're continuing the game. You need to stop acting like a pirate, and in order to remember, oh, okay, I'm John, I'm in the room, I'm with my friends, that's a table, that's not a ship. But if you don't stop your actions, you will not start to see, you'll continue to see the unreal reality you have projected through those actions. So in whichever case, you need to stop acting. Whatever goal your being is under, stopping acting, stilling down, being quiet, can open you up, can open your experience up to the next truer level of yourself, independent of what that level is. So once we quiet down, once we open up, once we shut up, shut our mind up, shut our soul up, just quiet down, still, then the next reality comes to us. Then the heart comes to us. We can't go to the heart. We can't do anything to reach the heart or the pure mind or anything that is clear. We can't achieve it. It's unachievable. We can only rest, calm down, and it will come on its own. It will reveal itself to us on its own. And this requires patience and trust to just stay there in nothingness, stillness, and wait. And be patient and trusting, and it's coming on its own.